All right, hello. Welcome to our lesson on nested loops. Just one quick note, I will post, this is another video on nested loops from the University of Purdue. Thought it was pretty decent, so I'll post that on Schoology if you want to, look this over at all and hear it from a different teacher's perspective. All right, but yeah, we're going to do a bunch of examples here in this video. As always, I would actually on this one, I can probably have you code some of the loops with me and analyze them. Mostly just be kind of thinking through the questions as we talk through them, but then eventually we'll start to write some loops in this lesson. Okay, so all a nested loop is a loop inside of a loop. So we have two for loops here, right? And that's it. That's basically what a nested loop is. Right, and so this one's going to be talked about in the Purdue video, so I'm actually going to do a different one to start with you. So I'm going to load up a nested loop here in Eclipse, and then we're just going to kind of talk through what's going on in this nested loop. All right, so we want to figure out like what is going to be printed. So we can see obviously we got some print statements here. And much like math, we start on the inside of the parentheses and work out. I'm going to do the same thing here and just say what would this print right there? Like if I just highlight that, try and pause the video here and think what's going to be printed by that for loop that's highlighted on the inside. All right, and so hopefully what you realize is that this for loop just prints 3 stars with no spaces, no returns, right? It's doing a system out print of a star, and so it's going to run 3 times for J1, 2, and 3, right? Because J increases by 1, so it just prints star, star, star. Okay, so that's what this loop does, and then at the end it prints a return. All right, so the inside loop prints overall all of this code inside here prints star, star, star with a return on the end. Okay, and then all that the nested loop will do is then this inside of here is going to run 4 total times, right? So the outside loop I is 1 up to 4, 1, 2, 3, and 4. So it runs 4 times, and each time it prints a row of 3 stars with a return. Okay, so when we run this, it's going to make a little rectangle where this row of stars, 3 stars, gets printed 4 times. Okay, so we run it and it looks what's shown up there. Okay, so I think another real good thing to try and make some sense of this is to pause the video and how would we make a rectangle with, let's say, 6 rows and 10 columns. Okay, so how would you alter this code? Right now, it does a rectangle like that has 4 rows and 3 columns, right? So how would you change it? All right, so hopefully you had a chance to think about this. And basically the outer loop, generally the way we set it up is going to count the rows, count this way down the rows. So right now there's 4, and if I want to make it 6, I'm just going to change this number to 6. Okay, and then generally this is the columns because it's how many stars you print going across, right? Like right here. So if I want to do 10, I just have to do it 10 times, blah, 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 blah. So I have to make this loop run 10 times. Okay, and so if we change that, now we will get a 6 by 10. It doesn't look super, proportional here, but whatever. This is 6 rows and then 10 star columns going across. All right. And again, this is called a nested loop, a loop inside of a loop. Okay. So I'm going to just change this now. All right. And I'm going to change this thing. So right now it goes 10 times, right? From 1 to 10, printing 1 star each time. If I change this to I, this would be a real good thing for you to try and write out on your paper. So now J goes less than or equal to I. What do you think is going to be printed by this loop? Right? So you could write it out, see if you can make some sense of what do you think is going to happen here. Okay, so I want to break this down. I'm going to go deep into the weeds here on this one, but I think it's important to understand what's going on here. So we're going to look at I, and I is going to be 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and 6. We start at 1, increase by 1 each time. All right, and so what happens when I is 1, j loops from, oops, sorry, I should make it match my other. J is going to start at 1 and go less than or equal to whatever I is. So this I is going to change each time. So we know this inside thing just prints a row of stars, but essentially that length of the row is going to change. So when I is 1 the first time through, J will go from 1 to 1. So basically it'll run just one time. It'll have the value of 1. Right? And then when I is 2, J will loop 1 to 2. All right, and then when when I becomes 3, it's going to loop up to I again, so up to or equal I, so it's going to be 1, 2, 3. Hopefully you can see the pattern. When I is 4, J will be 1, 2, 3, 4. When it's 5, it'll be 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Okay, and when it's 6, 1, 2, 3, 4. Sorry, I ran out of space there, 5 and 6. Okay, and so this is how many stars are going to be printed each time, followed by a return. So when I is 1, it prints a single star with a return. The inner loop only runs once. Okay, and then the second time through, the inner loop will run twice, print 2 stars, blah, 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 blah. So we'll get this pattern of a triangle shape, kind of like a right triangle instead of a rectangle. Right, so I'll go back into Eclipse here and you can run it and you'll see we get that little triangle shape instead of a rectangle. Right, and again, it's because the inner loop runs a different amount of times each time. Right, oftentimes I'll call this the outer loop, this one the inner loop. All right, and I can't remember if I said this in this video now or not, but generally this outside loop is the rows and this inside loop is the columns. So sorry, I should have said that earlier probably, but basically this one we have 6 rows and then the columns changes each time because of this J being less than or equal to I. It has different number of columns for each row. Okay. What I would like to do now is we're going to make a table that lists powers. So basically, I believe these would be like our base numbers, 1, 2, 3, and then this is like 2 to the first, 2 squared, 2 cubed, 2 to the fourth. This is 3 to the first, 3 squared, 3 cubed, 3 to the fourth. And we want to make this little table of powers. All right, and so this is going to be a good one to practice trying to write a nested loop, right? Basically, when you have a table like this, you're going to have like one loop for the rows, which is usually on the side here. That's the row loop, goes on the outside, and then we have the column loop on the inside. Okay, and you don't have to worry about printing like the outside or the labels along the grid. We'll just work on making the powers. All right, so if you feel like you can do this, knock yourself out, give it a shot. All right, otherwise you can keep watching and I'll break it down a little bit more for us. Okay, so a little more analysis. So we are going to write one, and again, if you feel like you can, just make a blank program called, powers or something like that, and see if you can actually do it. So these are going to be actually, again, the rows. Okay, and we want the rows to be from 1 to 10, based on what this setup is. Okay, and that's going to be our outside loop, right? So basically, we're going to have an outside loop that loops 1 to 10. Okay, and then we're going to have our inside loop is going to be our columns, right? And that's going to be just 1 to 4, right? Because those are our powers are just 1 to 4. All right, and then also on this, we're basically going to do the math.pow to generate these, and we're going to have a base number and an exponent. All right, and that's what we're going to print each time inside of the 2 loops. What I'm going to do is, so this is basically rows, that's the outer loop, and columns, and I'm actually going to call the rows the base because that's really what it is. These are the base number and the columns the exponent. So I'm not going to use I and J in my loop. I'm going to use like as specific things as I can. So I'm going to use base and exponent to make it a little bit more clear. Okay, so here we go with the code. So the outer loop, again, is going to be these rows, right, which are the base numbers from 1 to 10. So I'm just going to do a for int. I'm going to call it base, and I want to start at 1, and I want to go while the base is less than or equal to 10. So go up to 10 plus base. Okay, and then that's my outer loop again, is the rows. So my inner loop is going to be these columns, 1 to 4. So I'm going to do 4 int, and that's the exponent. So I could call it column or j or something, but I'm going to call it exponent because I think it'll be clear later. So I'm going to start at 1 again, and I want to go while I'm less than or equal to 4 plus exponent. Okay, and then all I want to do is I want to do a sysout print. If my computer can figure it out here, sorry for the delay, of math.pow. Okay, and this is where naming them makes sense because my first argument is the base and the second is the exponent. So that base to that power, I'm going to print it out. Okay, and so if I run this right now, right, I'm going to get something kind of goofy. You'll see here if I run it. Well, actually, I got an error about something. Missing a curly brace somewhere in there. But anyways, I think I got it running now. Okay, so you'll see I got all these powers, but it's not really in a table. All right, so what I need to do is figure out like where do I want the returns. So generally this prints, the inside loop prints a row of values. So I don't want the return until I'm done with that row. So I'm going to make this a print here and then print my return like with nothing in it at the end of the row. So this prints a row, that loop prints a row, and then I print the return. Right, and then the only other thing is, like if I do it now, it's going to be all mashed together, I think. So it doesn't look very pretty. So I'm going to put like a /t after this. So that member is a tab. So now there'll be a tab between each one and it'll look a little bit better. All right, so still not perfect, but basically not too bad. Right, and if we wanted to work, we could add the side stuff, you know, like the little headings on the rows and columns, but this looks pretty good to me. Okay, and I think what's really cool and powerful about this is we can make a super table now if we want, right? If I want to do from, you know, base 10, let's say I want to do base 100 and I want to do 6 x to the 6th powers, boom, I can make a giant table. And it kind of, the numbers get a little too big there, but you can see I'd have to work on my formatting some, but you can get like a monster table like really, really quickly, right? And that seems to me the power of computers is once you write the basics of it, you can just change it around and have it be really pretty powerful. So that's an example of one that printed the powers of a table. All right, more with this coming next, but we'll stop for now. Thank you for watching.